On today's show, we cross it over with the guys from Locked On Leafs, where we discuss the season series between the Cats and the Maple Leafs. We discuss how both teams got here, and we're going to discuss impact players and under the radar players, as well as along with giving our predictions between the Florida Panthers and the Toronto Maple Leafs.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the May 2nd edition of the Locked On Leafs, Locked On Panthers crossover round 2 preview for today. I can't believe that we're here, boys. I'm Mike DiStefano of Locked On Leafs. I've got my main man, Dave Morassutti, here, also from Locked On Leafs, and Armando Velez from Locked On Panthers will be doing the little crossover for all y'all today. And before we get any further, let me tell you that today's show is brought to you by Gametime. You can download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. That's right. You want to go down to Leafs Panthers Game 1, use the Gametime app, get yourself $20 off. Basically enough so you can buy yourself a free beer when you get down to Scotiabank Arena tonight for game number 1. But we're here, boys. Somehow, some way, the Maple Leafs and the Panthers squeaked through round 1 and are facing off against one another for round 2. Armando, we've kind of talked about it on our show. We'll talk about it again in a second. But I think a lot of people were shocked that the Panthers were able to beat the Big Bad Bruins, the best team ever, according to the record books. I mean, how shocked are you that we're here doing this podcast today?
Not only the fact that we're doing a show, but also how quick the turnaround is from Sunday night against the Bruins. Not having enough time to process the win, and of course, the Panthers, after getting that win in Boston, not going back home, straight to Toronto and even before, I was thinking, I hope they pack for a multiple day here. I'm hoping to go up to Toronto. But even Matthew Tkachuk with the belief, even in Game 5, saying that back in that locker room for Game 7 after he got the winner in Game 5, and it's great. I'm grateful to be hosting the show in the position to cover more playoff games and the players on the ice. It's definitely a good time in that locker room, but in South Florida.
I think most people in Toronto kind of want to know this. How the hell did they do it?
The thing is, the players like Matthew Tkachuk were the stars of that series, and it was the Florida Panthers winning the turnover battle against the Bruins, clogging up the neutral zone. Voracek for the Florida Panthers was just creating opportunities as well, and of course the shaky goaltending for the questionable decision to go to Jeremy Swayman in Game 7, and of course so many line juggles and as well for the Boston Things. And listen, this is why you bring Paul Maurice, former Maple Leafs coach, Paul Maurice, even though his time as the head short, but there's an experience factor that comes with what Paul Maurice brings to the table, and really outcoached Jim Montgomery in that series.
Yeah, he is one hell of a coach. That's for damn sure. Dave, I mean, I know it's been a few days, and we talked about it on yesterday's show, but I mean, the excitement level to be teeing up a round 2 for the first time in 19 years.
19 long years. And what makes it sweeter too is watching the Bruins have that epic collapse. So first we want to thank the Panthers for that. Thank you for helping us get a better draft pick.
Yes.
In round 1 now. That's going to be the 28th overall pick. It could have, everyone's projecting that to be at least 31, potentially 32, depending on how the Bruins season was going. So a little hat tip to the Panthers for that. But now, sworn enemies. Sworn enemies now. So the love is there, and now the love is gone. So I mean, yeah, just the fact that we're talking about round two is just something I was never really gonna, we never thought was going to happen. Like until you actually saw it happen, see it happen, seeing the Leafs make it to the next round. Now hearing all these people talk about it the next day is just surreal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm thinking you guys are happy that Boston was eliminated, and then all the wasn't it 11 straight elimination game clinching scenario
10.
games for 10 clinching games for the Toronto Maple Leafs that they had, and four of them I believe were against Boston. So opportunities for the Toronto Maple Leafs during that from 2013 to now, and then the Florida Panthers slaying the dragon. It was like David versus Goliath for the Florida Panthers. 43-point difference, but the Florida Panthers did it, and now they're here in round two.
It's crazy, man. It is absolutely crazy. But let's start to preview this thing because Leafs and Panthers round two, game one goes down tonight at Scotiabank Arena. Game one is tonight. Game two is on Thursday. As of the recording of the show, we're not exactly sure how the rest of the schedule will play out. I would imagine we'll figure that out over the next 24 hours now that the Rangers and Devils series is all finished. Congrats to the Devils. I'm sure Trey Matthews, our friend over at Locked On Devils, is pretty stoked to see that happen. But I'm looking at FanDuel right now, and I'm seeing the Maple Leafs favored in this series as minus 176 favorites to win the series. How does that make you feel, Armando, coming in as the underdog again?
I'm gonna quote Matthew Tkachuk, and everyone thinks that they're an underdog except the people in that locker room. Listen, the confidence is there for the Florida Panthers after this after winning in 7 games, and they've had their backs against the wall since January 2nd, being 9 points out and then going on that run to get to the final wild card spot, 92 points to get in, and it's once the game starts, it's a completely different story than what the betting odds say. But the Panthers were able to get through that series against the Boston Bruins with giving up 11 power play goals. I'm going to pull my inner Jeff Merrick here. Checks notes, 59% on the PK for the Florida Panthers in that series, and they still found a way to win. And that's with Sasha Barkov not contributing on the offensive end, and Aaron Ekblad as well.
Dave, are you going to tell him about the no Jeff Merrick references on this show? Are you going to tell him?
I mean, I'm not going to be the one to tell him, but
no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I mean, Jeff, this is trademark Jeff Merrick. There, I love the reference to Armando. And you know what? The funny thing is, you bring up the special teams because usually that's what was the trouble for the Leafs in past series against the Bruins. Was always the Leafs power play was terrible, and their PK was probably even worse in those series.
The Bruins, the Blue Jackets, the Habs, the Lightning. Didn't matter who the hell they were playing in the playoffs. The special teams was brutal. 13% over the last 3 years. No, 14%. Sorry, got to give them credit there. 14% success rate over the last 3 years on the power play. However, they finally got it cooking in this past series against Tampa. 28.6%. And if they can keep that going, again, I think the Florida Panthers really struggled on the PK. Sub 60% penalty kill rate throughout that series. I think that is something that Toronto could probably exploit if we're looking at ways that Toronto has the advantage. I think the special teams advantage is one. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. I would imagine that being extremely cautious around the officials and trying to stay out of the penalty box will definitely be one of the keys to success for Florida.
No doubt. And for the Florida Panthers side of things, we're, of course, fans. And, of course, Paul Maurice, they're hoping that Laurent Brossoit is not the one that's officiating, because the very first matchup was between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers. That was the famous Laurent Brossoit, Paul Maurice game where he called out Brossoit in that one. And as far as power play, the Toronto Maple Leafs were 6th in the NHL in the playoffs in power play percentage, and the Florida Panthers were 7th among playoff teams. So as far as power play production for both teams, they're like neck and neck based on that. But of course, the other end of things need to stay out of the box. But I was even saying that prior to this series that the Florida Panthers needed to do that, but I haven't seen any signs that it'll stop in this series.
What is one stat that kind of sticks out to you, Armando, that you think will have some influence in this series that you're kind of keep looking at and think that it's either a positive for the Panthers or a negative for the Panthers?
It has to 5-on-5 scoring for this team going into Game 7 of the Florida Boston series. Going into Game 7, the goal differential was a -2, but at 5-on-5 it was +4. So keeping it at 5-on-5 and using the thing is, this is a different pace that the Florida Panthers are going to be playing against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Run and gun style of offense that the Toronto Maple Leafs have, fast pace versus what Boston has, a little bit of a slower team that slows everything down for their opposition. And it's going to be different as far as trading chances. As far as scoring, I can only imagine that this is going to be a higher scoring series as far as goals combined. And it's funny because in the last series, that's the most goals the Florida Panthers have scored in a playoff series, and most of them were made on broken plays on the forecheck.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Toronto, I think that's going to be something that they're going to have to be weary of is, Florida's forecheck, because that was something that was super aggressive in that series against Boston. It's definitely what I noted. And, Toronto at times did well, I guess, on the forecheck against Tampa Bay, but at times we've seen them also kind of, give up some pucks and whatnot and lose those battles. So Toronto's going to certainly have to be weary of that happening. Dave, I want to go to you next, and we're going to kind of take a look at some players to watch in this series. Who's the guy that you got your eye on for the Toronto Maple Leafs in this series?
Well, it has to be the goaltender, Ilya Samsonov, going up against another fellow countryman in Sergei Bobrovsky. Like, you go from the Vezina winning trophy in Andrei Vasilevsky, guy who has carried the Lightning through so much, to Bobrovsky, who's had his ups and downs, but has found a way to get his team to the next round and pull off another big upset in the playoffs, and looking to do it once again. We know the pedigree that Bobrovsky has. We know the contract that came with it, the pressure and the expectations. Ilya Samsonov is trying to get himself into that conversation of being in that, elite goaltender starter that just hasn't been he hasn't been able to get to that level yet. He's shown it throughout that series against the Lightning. Now he's got to be able to do it for another round, and against the Panthers team that has some really good offensive weapons. Like, this is not going to be a walk in the park for Samsonov going into the series.
Yeah, I think that's a solid one to look at. For me, it's going to be Mitch Marner. I mean, I know you can look at the stat sheet, Armando, and look and say, wow, guy had 11 points in the playoffs through the first round in 6 games. He must have been unbelievable. To be honest, he was not like at the highest that we've seen him play. He was kind of, I don't want to say pedestrian. He was still played well, but there's another gear that this guy can hit. We've seen him play some really, really good hockey this season. And I think he's got another little level that he can hit, kind of elevate his play. He's someone, now that the monkey's off the back, they finally won a round, finally won a series. I think this guy can erupt. And there's going to be a lot more space out there against Florida than there was against the Tampa Bay Lightning, just based on the style that both of these teams kind of like to play. And I think with that space that he'll be allotted here, I think that he'll kind of erupt and there'll be some big-time production, and that guy's going to make his presence known. And there'll be a couple of games here where we'll refer to it as the Marner game. He's someone I'm definitely keeping an eye on. What about in the Sunshine State? Who's the player to watch for the Panthers?
And before I do, going to Marner, 6 points in 4 games against the Panthers this season, and Austin Matthews 5 goals in 4 games against the Panthers in the season
Yeah.
series as well. So those guys have definitely killed the Panthers this season, and historically, not necessarily this season, but historically, John Tavares has been a Panther killer going back to his days with the New York Islanders, and even had the game-winning goal in game number 881 of the season. But hey, even though the Panthers lost that game in overtime, they were still in control of their destiny at that time. And Nylander, 3 goals there for the Toronto Maple Leafs against the Panthers. But it has to be Sasha Barkov for the Panthers. 1 goal didn't come till Game 6 on a play that Anthony Duclair just threw at the net. Redirected, and then Sasha Barkov puts it in past Linus Hallmark there. The captain, if you want any chance to win this series, it's Alexander Barkov has to be the guy to deliver. And I also want to say Aaron Ekblad as well. He missed Game 4 against the Boston Bruins with an injury. Had a collision with Charlie McAvoy in Game 3 that saw him a little bit woozy after it. And Brandon Montour has been carrying the D on the offensive end, and I'm hoping to see Aaron Ekblad back, as now he's been off the power play 1 unit. Now Sam Bennett has replaced him in there as well.
Yeah, Brandon Montour is a player that if you haven't been tracking the Florida Panthers all season, like I'm sure some of the people that watch our show on a daily basis, our everydayers, may not be familiar with the fact that he had 73 points in the regular season and had another 5 goals is what he ended up with in the first round, including the game tying goal to send it to overtime in the final minute against the Boston Bruins. Yeah, Brandon Montour is a pretty special player. He's having one hell of a season. Definitely somebody who the Leafs are going to be having an eye on for sure. I'm surprised he didn't go with Matt Tkachuk, though, although maybe he'll come in when we talk about our X factors in a little bit. But before we get into our X factors and we get to some burning questions heading into this round 2 matchup, I want to tell you guys about one of our show sponsors here on the Locked On Network, and that is Gametime. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over tickets and just start getting hyped for the fun that you will have. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, hockey, baseball, whatever you want. You can get images of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you'll never have to dig through your email to find them. Snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs, Locked On Panthers crossover preview show as round number 2 gets underway tonight with the Leafs taking on the Panthers at Scotiabank Arena for game number 1. Gentlemen, I'm pretty excited to see this because it's been a really good series throughout the season. I mean, they've been super tight scoring games. Of the 4 games, 3 of them went to overtime. One of them was a little lopsided. It was a 6-2 win, but 3 of them super close, tight games. And I think this is going to be a terrific series. Armando, we'll start with you. Do you have any burning questions for Dave and I heading into the series?
Before I get there, going back to the season series and 3 overtime games, there's 2 season-changing games that happened for the Florida Panthers. One of them was against the Boston Bruins right before the All-Star break, and the second one was
the Lion King came alive.
The Lion King, yep, that one, where it started their 6-game winning streak to have them finish 6-1-1 just 2 days after losing to the Ottawa Senators, and the Lion King came alive. And hey, they wouldn't be here without him too, even though he's not starting. But the thing about these 2 teams, the Florida Panthers broke their 26-year drought last year against the Capitals. The Toronto Maple Leafs, they broke their 19-year drought. I was in 4th grade the last time the Toronto Maple Leafs won a playoff series in 2004. Not having a worry in the world, just playing GameCube all the time during that time of life. But now that the monkey is off their back for the Panthers, they're playing with house money right now. And now that they beat the big bad Bruins, but for the Maple Leafs, now what is considered a great season for the Toronto Maple Leafs? I was thinking prior to it, you have to get at least to the conference final for them, but also I bet a lot of fans were just thinking just win a round first.
Dave, you want to take this one?
I mean, the thing is, the Leafs have had so much pressure on them for so long. Like, was there pressure on the Panthers to like go far this year? Like that's kind of what I was wondering, because I think what the difference between the Leafs and like the Panthers is.
Well, I think what I would say is, and Armando, you can correct me if I'm wrong, there was certainly a lot more pressure at the beginning of the season on Florida to do well, based on obviously what happened last year, being the President's Trophy champions and then getting eliminated, and then making massive changes to the team with the Huberdeau trade, bringing in Kachuk, swapping coaches. I would assume that the thought process was they did that to better their team and have success. So I think at the beginning of the year, Florida probably did have high expectations, but then by the time they got to the playoffs and they had to play Boston, who was these beasts of a season team all season long, then it kind of changed a little bit. Is that fair to speculate?
Yeah, very well so. And I thought they were going to be in the top three before game one of the regular season started. But honestly, what Paul Maurice preaches is to play that playoff style hockey for the Panthers and get to the playoffs and have a system that is more fitting towards winning a series. And hey, they won a series for two years in a row, the first time that's happened in their history, and 4 years in a row being in the postseason. Prior to 2020, they only made it 5 times in their 29-year history. So it seems that this, even though their regular season record doesn't say so, this looks to be more sustainable for the Florida Panthers long term.
Yeah, and that's pretty much where the Leafs have kind of been. We're trying to get trying to get to that next round, and then once they get to the next round, the sky's the limit for this team. Really, like you think about, everyone was talking about, once they get past Tampa in round one, it's Boston that they got to get to deal with in round two. Unfortunately, not many were thinking about the Panthers as being one of the roadblocks that the Leafs would have to face along the way. And once the Bruins were eliminated, like I'm sure you saw the discourse online, Armando, that okay, like now the path looks just a little bit easier. I mean, a lot of people are giving the Panthers respect because of what they did against Boston, but we also know that the Panthers were still over 40 points less than the Bruins. Like it was just such an improbable.
It took a remarkable run from the Lion King to even
Yes.
make. You know what? It took Keith Kachuk mouthing off on my radio station.
Yep.
For them to get going. That's what it took. I like. How much did that play in the market of Florida, by the way, when Keith Kachuk went off and called the Panthers soft? And from that day forward, they were just these tenacious beasts.
It's not only that. That was one of them. But the other one was a review against the Leafs where Paul Maurice was exploding on the Panthers bench.
He lost it. Yeah.
Calling them effing pussycats without the cat in it. so
I remember that. I do recall.
that
was the same day though. It was literally the exact same day. Like that day, things all changed for this team.
I was at that game too. I remember that. I didn't see it because I wasn't facing the benches. I remember that now.
Oh yeah, he went ballistic. And the funny thing is, I'm pretty sure the goal was overturned.
Yeah, the Panthers got the Panthers were trailing. The Leafs would have had a bigger lead, but then the goal got called back. Panthers would eventually get the tying goal and then win it in the overtime, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, I did take that improbable run. Like we knew the Panthers, like they weren't going to be the same team as the year before, but they still the core was still there. And I mean, we all talk. I mean, the Matthew Kachuk trade was like a big game changer for that Panthers team.
Home run.
Yeah, at first it was like, oh, that's a lot to give for Kachuk, and then Kachuk goes and has another MVP season. Like, I don't think you guys are complaining too much about what you gave up to get a Matthew Kachuk for the next 7 seasons after this one.
Here's the thing. Winnipeg, Paul Maurice's old squad, out in 5 games, and their coach is turning on their players, and the players are turning on their coach.
Yep.
And now Calgary, GM is out, and now their head coach is out too. So who are in better situations now? I think the answer is an obvious one there for sure.
Oh yeah,
probably the one that's still in the playoffs, currently fighting for a Stanley Cup. I think would probably be the correct answer, pal. I got a question for you. One that you kind of already answered in a way is: are there any other injuries that are kind of popping up here outside of Ekblad, who might be still dealing with something? Like, is this team fully healthy going forward? And second of all, what's the level of confidence in Sergei Bobrovsky in this series?
Ryan Lomberg is week to week. He did not play. He did not close out the series. Paul Maurice said that he played through. He got injured in game 1 and played through something, but he is week to week, so don't expect them in the beginning of the series. And I remember even before Dave came around, I remember we were talking about Bobrovsky. I remember Mike and I, you told me I have to pronounce it that way. Don't think I forgot that.
Good old Dan. Bobrovsky.
Yeah. So listen, the contract is not the best. We know this for as in South Florida, but didn't have the best game 4, definitely. But of course, the timely saves. You look at his overall numbers for the series. You see 891 save percentage, 3.94 GAA, but it doesn't tell the whole story about the timely saves that Sergei Bobrovsky has had to made for the 2-time Vezina Trophy winner. So it's going to take more than just Bobrovsky. It's going to take the blue line as well, helping him out and not having the Toronto Maple Leafs live on the doorstep in front of him. But of course, when it comes to the penalty killing, it's the whole old cliche. Your best penalty killer has to be your goaltender as well. So sometimes Bobrovsky is going to need to bail his team out, and hopefully we can, on the Panther side of things, we could see that.
If you had to put a percentage on it, how much percent would you say that we will see the Lion King at some point in the series?
0.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I think the way they finished the regular season with Alex Lyon, and then when you needed a shakeup in the Boston series, you go with the guy that you put a heavy investment on, and it's about pride here. It's about putting your money where your mouth is. Even though Bill Zito isn't the guy who signed Sergei Bobrovsky, even though Bill Zito was with the Columbus Blue Jackets when they upset the Tampa Bay Lightning, go figure. But it's about putting the investment there for the Florida Panthers, and I think they're gonna ride with him the rest of the way. And I think the only way Alex Lyon comes in is if there's an injury, but maybe 5% at most, 5-10% at most, but very, very low.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Bobrovsky is the goaltender to upset both the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Boston Bruins, both teams who set records those years. And it was Bobrovsky who got it done. But I'll say this, Armando. Do you remember what happened to Bobrovsky and his squad in round 2?
I definitely remember. So didn't go well after that. That's for sure.
No, it didn't. Dave, who's going to be the X factor for Toronto in this series?
Oh, I got to go with Austin Matthews. He loves to play against Sergei Bobrovsky. You talk about you watch a lot of these Leafs Panthers games, and it seems like whenever Bobrovsky's in that, I remember that game earlier in the season where the Leafs played the Panthers, and I think he scored twice. It was like one of those games that showed that Austin Matthews was back, right? He went through the kind of the tough stretch this season, dealing with an injury, and all of a sudden things were turning around for him. it was that game against Florida where you start to see the old Austin Matthews from last year come back. So I think he's going to really like that matchup. He seems to really like playing against Bobrovsky. Armando, I know you have a lot. I don't know if you have check your notes there. I did not have that note written down, but I do know Austin Matthews does like to score on Sergei Bobrovsky.
Yep, and
Yes.
Sergei Bobrovsky playing 2 games in this season series for the Panthers. But yeah, 5 goals for Austin Matthews in this series. But my X factor has to be Matthew Tkachuk for the Panthers. Of course, being that pest, that annoying player in front of the net, and of course, there's going to be a lot of whistles and of course getting in his face to protect Samsonov as well, because he's going to be on the doorstep. That's for sure. And listen. Matthew Tkachuk is that guy who you love him when he's on your team, but you can't stand him if he's not. And regardless of win or lose for the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Florida Panthers, Toronto Maple Leaf fans are not going to like Matthew Tkachuk after this series. So that is my X factor. But
Newsflash, Armando, they already don't.
Second?
Matthew Tkachuk. Respect him for the player, the throwback guy he is, obviously. But as a player, there is already history with Matt Tkachuk and this Maple Leafs team that stems back to Calgary. They already know what to expect with this guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and an under the radar player. I want to note an under the radar player, someone who came alive towards the end of the series against Boston. I want to see what Anton Lundell has in store. He really came alive, especially in that Game 7, and Eetu Luostarinen as well. They're manning that third line along with Sam Reinhart, and Sam Reinhart's making 6.1 and being on that third line. And it creates a little bit of balance. And I know the Toronto Maple Leafs have their balance as well, especially with Ryan O'Reilly manning that third line center for the Maple Leafs as well. Just lethal, the top 9 that the Toronto Maple Leafs have, making that Ryan O'Reilly trade.
Dave, you got an under the radar guy for the Maple Leafs?
Oh man, it's really always hard to pick an under the radar for the Maple Leafs because everybody's on the radar.
This is true. You know, I got. You
go first.
Timothy Liljegren.
Ooh, that's a
We
good
saw the practice lines today, and looks like Timothy Liljegren's going to remain in the lineup as the third pair defenseman with Giordano. Looks like they're going back to the 12 and 6, but so Gustafson's coming out, and Zach Askin-Reese is going back in. No Lafferty as well, but Gio and Liljegren will be a pairing. And I don't know if you saw the stat that was floating around, Armando, but Justin Hall was on the ice for 73% of the total goals that Tampa had scored leading up to Game 6. And he was taken out of the lineup in Game 6, and Toronto only gave up one singular goal in that game. Just saying. But he is someone who I'm interested in because he's a player who at one point I seriously thought was solidifying himself as kind of a top 4 defenseman for this team. And then all of a sudden the Maple Leafs went and made all these moves at the deadline, and his play just really diminished after that. Then he found himself on the outside looking in. Went from being potentially the team's, 4th, 5th best defenseman to being the 7th best defenseman and not playing the first 5 games of the series. He's someone who's got some fresh legs. I think he's got some juice. He's a young player, good puck mover, in a series that's going to be a lot more fast-paced than I think the Tampa Bay one was. I think that he's kind of an under-the-radar type of guy who I'm curious to see how he could perform in this series, with a little bit more of a bigger load than he's had in the past. We need a prediction from all 3 of us on this series.
Don't we have to transition to segment number 3 first before we do?
No. We can do this, then we'll do the next segment on the other side.
All right. I guess I'll go first since and I have it written down. So with the Florida Panthers, of course, they playing with house money. I spoke about all about that, and for me as a fan, I'm excited for them to be here, but the special teams is a big concern. The goaltending is a big concern. So, but I have it written down. I don't know if you could see clearly right here.
Yeah, I see it.
Leafs in 6, baby. Leafs in 6.
Leafs in 6. I think that the Florida Panthers run will come to an end in this series. But listen, I was wrong about this about the Bruins series. I said Bruins in 6, but they ended up winning the series. So I hope to be wrong once again for this Panthers team.
Dave?
I'm gonna go Leafs in 5.
I will go Leafs in 6 as well. Armando, give you 2 wins. I think that the Panthers could pick up a couple of wins. They'll get a couple solid performances from Bobrovsky, and I think they'll get a couple. But I think it's Toronto's just they're the better team at the end of the day, up and down the lineup, better blue line. I think they got a better forward group. They're deeper. They got more stars. You know, the goaltending is probably a wash at this point. Like Bobrovsky has the pedigree, I suppose, but you look at how they both have played this year. Samsonov has been the better goaltender. So, I think, on paper, it does look like the Maple Leafs are the better team, but it also looked like the Boston Bruins were the better team. And that's why we play the games, boys. It's why we play the game. So it should be a really good series, though. I'm definitely excited about it. One more fun fact before we go. I bet you your Locked On Panthers fans will love to hear about this stat. Matthew Tkachuk, who you're hoping to be an X factor, in 23 games against the Toronto Maple Leafs, only 9 points. So
not a good stat.
Might need to change that if they're going to stand a chance here in the series. Which, again, not saying at all that he won't do that and he won't be a pest. Just a factoid that I thought I'd throw out there. No meaning whatsoever. Just kind of putting that out there. All right, guys, let's take one more break. When we get back, let's look at the other 3 series that we got rocking in the NHL in the conference. What is it? The conference semifinals, I guess, is what we call them. Round 2. The other 3 series, we'll do those on the other side. But first, Dave, a word from our show sponsor.
Yes, today's show is brought to you by a product that I use every day, and that is AG1 by Athletic Greens. The grip of winter is finally being loosened, and you may be trying to get back to a more healthy and active lifestyle. What better way to pair that with some new exercise habits than going and get yourself some daily nutritional assurance in the form of AG1. With one delicious scoop of AG1 in a glass of water each day, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, nervous system, immune system, recovery, energy, focus, aging, all of those things. It's also lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy free, or gluten free. AG1 also contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, or artificial anything, while still tasting good and supporting better sleep quality, recovery, and mental clarity. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free trial packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs, Locked On Panthers crossover edition ahead of Game 1, Round 2 tonight at Scotiabank Arena. We're going to take a look at the rest of the series that we've got unfolding here in the National Hockey League as Round 2 kicks off tonight. Why don't we start with one that was already set in place the other day, and that is the Kraken and the Stars out west. Stars minus 188 favorites over on FanDuel to win the series. We'll start with you, Dave. How do you see this one unfolding?
Yeah, I mean, first off, got to give the Kraken credit for pulling off another big upset. 2 upsets in one night. Who would have thought that the reigning Stanley Cup champions would lose to an expansion team in their second season in the league? But I like the Kraken. I like their depth. If Grubauer can continue this performance from the first round and bring that into the second round, I think I would give them the edge in this series. I think this is going to go the distance. I think this is going to go 7. And the only way I see the Stars winning this series is if their depth steps up, because the Kraken, all they got to do is figure out a way to stop that top line And Andre is going to be obviously an X factor for the Stars here, but I think Seattle's depth is going to be a little bit too much for Dallas to overcome.
Did you see that crazy stat? How the Kraken had 15 goal scorers through round one. 15 different guys hit the score sheet in round number one. Insane stat as they upset the defending Cup champs. Armando is taking it.
It's funny going based on the Kraken. I think their highest point score was 6 points throughout the series, so it's a spread of wealth. And without former Panther and Maple Leaf Jared McCann as well after he got hurt in this series as well. And for the Stars, Joe Pavelski was out after game one due to an upper body injury after I believe it was Matt Dumba that got him good there. But it's the goalie matchup here. Jake Ottinger's the better goalie, so I think it's going to be Dallas in 6.
Boys, you have way too much faith in the Seattle Kraken because guess what I am predicting?
You're predicting a sweep. Yeah.
A sweep, fellas. The Dallas Stars are going to walk into Seattle and just sweep these guys. They'll win 2 at home pretty easily. Ottinger's going to stand on his head, and they're going to go to Climate Pledge Arena, and they're going to show them who's boss. Say, hey, that was cute when you beat the Colorado Avalanche, but that was your Stanley Cup. Now let the big boys actually compete here for the real prize. Get out of our way. 4 games, it's done. Stars in 4, it's a sweep. Vegas and Oilers, Dave.
Okay, so you want my heart's prediction or you want my brain's prediction?
I want your brain's prediction. And just so you know, FanDuel has the Oilers favored to win the series minus 152 odds.
Yeah, this is a tough one because I think the Oilers have the better star power in this series. I still can't trust Stuart Skinner as far as I can throw him. Like that's the one thing that's giving me has.
Do you have more trust in Laurent Brossoit?
Hey, he outdueled Connor Hellebuck in round 1. That ain't no easy feat, right? So I think, and I think
technically.
And look, if Laurent Brossoit is not up to the challenge, you got some options there in Jonathan Quick that you can turn to, and I think I would trust Jonathan Quick over Stuart Skinner based on how the teams play. I still think the Oilers are going to pull this off. I'm going to give them 6 games. They do not want that series to go 7. They don't want to give Vegas any breathing room in this series. So I'm gonna go 7. I think this is the series that Connor McDavid puts himself up into the scoring lead in the NHL in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, I got the Oilers winning this one too. I think this does go 7 though. I think Vegas gives them a good run for their money. I just think that these are 2 pretty well balanced teams. The goaltending, they're both question marks in my opinion on both sides. So I think we'll see some decently high scoring games also. But at the end of the day, I just think that the firepower of McDavid and of Draisaitl are just going to be a little bit too much. And you know, guys like Evander Kane, Nugent Hopkins, Hyman, like they've figured out ways to get on the score sheet as well. Klim Kostin turned out to be a bit of an unsung hero in that round 1 matchup against the LA Kings. He had like 3 or 4 goals playing a 4th line role. So, you know, they're getting some decent scoring. Ekblad's been a terrific addition, has really helped round out that defense. Evan Bouchard had like 11 points from the points. And again, we go back to what we think is going to play a major factor in the series against Toronto and Florida. Special teams. Oilers have the best power play in the league. They have for like 2 years now, and it just continues to be the best. So I think for that reason, I'll give them, the tip in their direction, and I'll go Oilers in 7.
And let's also think about this storyline, the 2015 draft. McDavid first, Eichel second. And now they're facing each other in a playoff series. This is the first time that Jack Eichel is in a playoff series. And I'll be honest with you, I know Jonathan Quick has won 2 cups, but I don't trust him at this point in his career, honestly. So I think it's Laurent Brossoit's crease throughout that series for the Vegas Golden Knights. So for this series, I mean, Connor McDavid didn't arrive in that LA series until the tail end of the series neither. And to think that he was going to be contained, I don't see it. I don't see it happening the rest of the way. I mean, Draisaitl has been just great. And also going back to last year, playing on one ankle too, throughout the postseason. And I think that the Edmonton Oilers, like you said, Mike, the power play is just too lethal. I think it's going to be really hard to stop. And even before Game 1 of the season, I said that the Edmonton Oilers were going to go to the Stanley Cup final, and I'm not backing that down now. So I think it's going to be Oilers in 6.
And the final matchup that was just an hour before we actually sat down to record finally got finished up here as the Devils beat the Rangers 4-0. Akira Schmid with another hell of a performance. Can he keep it going in round 2 against the Carolina Panthers? This one currently a pick'em over on FanDuel. Dave, we'll start with you.
Yeah, one thing I'm wondering is what's Timo Meyer's status going to be like after
he's dead.
He returned to the bench.
He returned to the bench, but I don't know if he played or if he got back into the game.
He died on the ice. Did you see? That was the most fierce hit I've seen since Scott Stevens. I'm not even joking.
Yeah, that was like
that was scary. It was. He returned to the bench, obviously, but man, at first I was like, "Holy crap!" Like you saw his literally.
You got Paul Korea images in your head.
Yeah, I was like Scott Stevens. That was a Scott Stevens '90s hit. It was brutal, clean. I mean, relatively clean. Like
clean in terms of the rule book, but you knew what Jacob Trouba was trying to do there.
Well, he's the choo-choo Trouba train. Like the guy just comes through. You better, keep your eye on the ice, not puck watching. And when you're coming across the blue line, you should know that when that guy's out there on the ice. But
that's Crosby.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be curious to see what his status is going forward for sure. But either way, how do you handicap it without, I guess, knowing what his status will be, Dave?
Yeah, I thought I'm not too convinced with the Hurricanes right now. I just think the injuries have been too much for them. I don't know if they're going to have the scoring at 5-on-5 to go up against New Jersey. Like New Jersey's is a really good defensive team. Goaltending, yeah, we don't know how the rookie is going to be able to handle the pressure now, but I mean, he just kept the New York Rangers at bay. Like that's no easy team.
Showtime, man, showtime.
I'm gonna keep
time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna keep it on the Devils train here. I'm gonna go with Devils in 6.
You're a hater. You just don't believe in Freddie Anderson.
I'm a Leafs fan. I have seen what Freddie Anderson does in the playoffs, and he didn't exactly look fantastic against the Islanders. That one goal that he allowed.
Mm-hmm. And are they going to go back to Ronta? Are they going to go stick with Freddie Anderson as well? Because Ronta played the first 5 games started, and I think this put a wrench in a lot of NHL fans' predictions because I thought the New York Rangers were gonna at least make it to the Eastern Conference Final when the postseason started. In the beginning of the season, going back to Game 1 again, I thought that the Carolina Hurricanes were going to make it to the Stanley Cup Final against the Edmonton Oilers, a rematch of 2006. But no Max Pacioretty, no Andrei Svechnikov, no Timo Teravainen as well for the Carolina Hurricanes. A lot of injuries are holding the Carolina Hurricanes back. I believe. I mean, yes, you have Sebastian Aho, Marty Necas. I hope that Sebastian Aho's face is okay, by the way, after that puck that went into the net. But I just think that how the New Jersey Devils also played against the New York Rangers, containing them. At one point in Game 7 against the Rangers, slot shots were 11-1 in favor of New Jersey. They didn't allow New York to do anything and get anything on Akira Schmid as well. And the offensive scoring punch for the Carolina Hurricanes, it's worrisome for sure. So I'm going to say Devils in 6.
It will be interesting to see how this does play out because these are very evenly matched teams. And I don't know, when you look at the advanced numbers, they're the number 1 and number 2 team in the league when it comes to the possession analytics numbers. Carolina was the number 1 team through the regular season in terms of 5-on-5 expected goal differential. The New Jersey Devils, the number 2 team in expected goal differential. these are very evenly matched teams, and I think that, and again, they were separated by one measly point in the regular season as well. I do truly believe that I think those injuries will factor in. I think you're right, Armando, which is why I also am leaning with the Devils to win this one. I think that Akira Schmidt is playing some excellent goaltending, man. Like as much as I joked about it, like, dude, sometimes you just need a kid to go on a run. Look at Jordan Bennington. Right?
Mhm.
Is this like a Jordan Bennington-esque run we're gonna get out of these Devils? And look, the Devils are a quality team, man. Like they've got some real talent on
Yeah.
both ends of the ice, offensively and defensively. So I do think that it goes 7, though. I think that Rob Brindamore gets that team to buy in and give them everything they have. I can see this being a game 7 overtime, type of game here. But ultimately, I'm going to roll with the New Jersey Devils to get through and beat the Carolina Hurricanes. So that's it. So that would set up, I guess we're all in favor of a Jersey Leafs conference final, and then Oilers. Did you say Stars or Kraken, Dave?
I said Kraken.
I said Stars.
Okay. So Armando and I are correct with the Stars and Oilers, and Dave, for whatever reason, needs to get his noodle checked because he thinks the Kraken stand a chance in this series.
Kraken hockey, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. Release the Kraken, buds. Tell you what. If the Kraken win this series, I'll do a shot of Kraken on Locked On Leafs, okay? Right on the show. We'll do a shot of Kraken in celebration of them winning a second round. I don't think it'll happen, but if it does, that's what we'll do. All right. Well, this was fun, fellas. It really was. And now the battle begins on the ice. Good luck to your Panthers, Armando, David, our Leafs. Hopefully they can keep it going. They got one round done, but the job isn't finished. Job's not done. They got to keep her going, and we'll see it all start tonight. Game 1, 7 o'clock, puck drop. Let's see what happens. I'm Mike DiStefano from Locked On Leafs with my co-host Dave Morassutti. That is Armando Velez of Locked On Panthers. You've been listening to a Locked On Leafs, Locked On Panthers crossover edition. Enjoy the games tonight, folks.